I go to take him down. He said some words as we're going down.
What did he say to you?
I mean, he called me the N-word. He called me a stupid N-word.
And he was asked, why didn't you bring it up right after the game? He said, I didn't because I would be reaching for justification at the time. What the hell are you doing now?
Hey, thanks for watching Numbskull News. Today we're talking about Myles Garrett and this mysterious N-word that came out of nowhere, apparently. I have a hard time believing Mr. Garrett about the N-word that he said that Mason Rudolph had used against him. Now, what I really believe that he's full of shit on is the reason he's done this interview recently. But there are some interesting highlights that the media has thrown out there, and that's what I want to go over.
Like he's telling the truth as far as he understands it. John Dorsey, the GM, said that Myles Garrett was making this claim immediately after the incident, right?
Okay, so apparently he told John Dorsey, his boss, right, as soon as he came off the field about it. Now, put yourself in Myles Garrett's shoes, which, I easily can. I'm an employee. I have a boss. If I've screwed up, the boss comes to me and is like, hey, what the hell happened? Why'd you screw that up? How did this get screwed up? The first thing I'm going to do is reach for an excuse. I'm not trying to take the full blunt of whatever I screwed up. I mean, that's just a very human thing to do.
And I get John Dorsey saying, well, he told me this. John Dorsey, did you relay this information to the NFL? Did any of the coaches that Myles Garrett allegedly said this to, did they relay this information? Okay, NFL, if you had this information, NFL said, look, we've checked the audio, we can't find it.
So apparently he tells his boss, he's told some coaches, and no one reports that directly to the NFL. I mean, before Myles Garrett has to go and stand before the commissioner, does anybody think for 2 seconds that, this is our guy, we're defending him, let's go talk to the commissioner, let me put something in writing, whatever it may be. Kitchens had that shirt on saying, hey, Pittsburgh started it. Well, I find it hard to believe that none of those guys would tell the commissioner. Now, again, I'm calling Myles Garrett a liar, and now I'm calling John Dorsey a liar. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. It's something weird about that.
Now, he came out and said he didn't make it widely known because he didn't want to make it seem as though he's using it as an excuse for his behavior, which he describes as inexcusable.
Well, why else do the interview?
You haven't done any interviews over the last few months. What made you want to do one today?
I mean, it's good timing. Now I can finally, I'm back in the league, so I feel like it's a good time for me to share.
And if you notice there, he kind of stopped himself because finally, and then he says, well, I'm back in the league and I can share. Finally what? Finally you can tell your side of the story from your mouth, not from a surrogate, not from a leaked media report, but you can actually tell your side. And when he pulls back on that, I'm like, okay, you're full of shit, dude. You almost said it. You almost said exactly the reason you're sitting down and doing the interview.
I believe, based on the evidence, that Myles Garrett believes that Mason Rudolph said it. He thinks he heard something that I find hard to believe was actually said, but he thinks he heard it.
And now this is an excuse that has been offered up by many people in the media and fans. And I don't blame them too much because you're not trying to just kill Myles Garrett, right? He seems like a nice guy. And, you don't want him to look like that kind of liar, that kind of excuse maker and being that full of crap. My problem is that I've been racking my brain trying to think of something that Mason Rudolph could have said, some kind of insult that sounds anything like the N-word that's not the N-word. The problem is the N-word is very distinctive.
Morning, niggas! I asked you, who this nigga on that nag? Oh, nigga, please! Nigga, please!
It's your benefactor, nigga. I'm coming up.
Come on up, nigga. It's open. Did you notice a sign in the front of my house that said dead nigger storage?
What's up, something sure smells good. You niggas cooking?
I'll say, must not be a nigger in the street with a healthy toot in his mouth.
Storing dead niggers ain't my fucking business, that's why.
Rules out, he's a nigger! He's a nigger! He's a nigger!
Oh my God.
A nigger, look, there's a nigger!
Now, whether it's coming from Dave Chappelle, Samuel L. Jackson, or Kramer from Seinfeld going nuts on stage and destroying his own career, you see it's a very distinctive word. It's hard to misconstrue. So I'm not going to offer up that excuse for Myles Garrett. Well, it was just an accident. No, it's either he's telling the truth or he's lying. Either he's lying or Mason Rudolph's lying. Somebody's lying.
Read up on Myles Garrett, the kind of family he comes from, the kind of man he is, the charitable work he does. This man writes poetry in his spare time.
Okay, he writes poetry, so obviously he can't tell a lie or deflect the truth or whatever, because he's a poet.
The way it makes Myles Garrett look to me at this moment is just honest. He's like, this is an inconvenient thing for me to say right now. From his point of view, he must be thinking, but I'm being asked, I'm going to tell the truth.
Okay, well, if it's really that inconvenient, then don't do the interview. You said he's being asked. No. He said in the interview that he heard Myles Garrett say something. And then the reporter asked, well, what did he say? So you led the interviewer to ask that follow-up question, well, what did he say? Because you wanted to double down that Mason Rudolph said the N-word. This is what Myles Garrett wants to do. It's not inconvenient at all. It's actually a rather convenient excuse to say, look, man, I lost my cool. I did the wrong thing. That's because this fool called me that, and I lost it.
It doesn't seem like you're apologizing. It doesn't seem like you. Basically, what you're saying, the reason why I did what I did is because I heard what I heard, which is justification for doing what you did.
And leave it to Shannon Sharp to really bust it down to the core deal. That you're wanting justification. You want everyone to see your justification and not just see you as some lunatic swinging your helmet.
Now, the reports makes you look at this situation only two ways. Do you believe Myles Garrett, or do you believe what everything else is about this situation outside of what Myles Garrett is implying?
I like Marcellus Wiley. Sorry, Marcellus. I like him. I think he's really good at his job. He's much better at that than he was as a defensive end for the Dallas Cowboys. And usually the reason I like Marcellus Wiley is he usually leaves the emotions out and uses straight logic. He puts that Ivy League brain of his, into his work and into his opinions. And he usually sticks to facts. The problem is there's no facts in what he's saying in his defense of Myles Garrett. It's irrational and emotional.
And I will believe Myles Garrett because
he's black. I'm sorry. That's unfair, but that's the way it comes across.
Starting with one, yesterday in his scripted 6 days later press conference.
As he can't believe Mason Rudolph and one of the reasons, because it was a 6 days later press conference that Mason Rudolph had. Well, who cares if it's 6 days later? Who cares that it's scripted? Tons of people have press conferences that are scripted. People use teleprompters, politicians, movie stars, directors, producers, sports people. Oh, look at there. You have a script. You must be lying.
That didn't show full contrition. That he actually went out there and, quote, said, I didn't escalate the situation. Oh, my eyes are lying. My eyes deceive me.
He didn't show full contrition. I mean, I guess Marcellus Wiley has the only pair of eyes in the universe, besides God, that can look into a man's soul and pick apart the truth or falsehood. Okay, I guess join the X-Men, dude. I don't know what to tell you.
Two, watching the film of the exact moment that all of this started, he's never taken full responsibility for any of those actions, but he has certainly allowed himself to take all of the response of his victimhood once he got hit.
Well, once someone weaponizes a helmet, your own helmet, and whacks you over the top of the head with it, that kind of makes you a victim. It's called assault.
Right.
I don't know any guy who isn't going to stand on a podium and say, hey, my actions were inexplicable. My actions were inexcusable. But this dude threw a racial slur at me. And not only that, I believe you issued a written apology to him. Mm-hmm. And now 7 days later or 6 days later, now all of a sudden there was a racial slur. You've never mentioned it before?
Yeah.
I find that
Incredible.
incongruent. I
find that incredible because
you're white. I'm sorry, again, that's just what it looks like to me. I mean, look at Marcellus Wiley's face during this debate. He is seething at this point, and I understand you don't want this young black kid who's a superstar to look bad. Myles Garrett, he's intelligent, he's smart, he's articulate. I mean, he's a great, all the appearances say he's a great role model for kids of all colors. When someone screws up, you hold them to account. You don't let them use excuses. Marcellus wants him to have this excuse. Because Mason Rudolph, look how, blah, blah, blah. And if you think about it for 2 seconds, just think about it for 2 seconds. If Mason Rudolph called Myles Garrett a stupid N-word, while they're on the ground tussling, and Myles Garrett, gets ticked off, rips off his helmet, says, yeah, let's see who's stupid now. Okay, the last thing some idiot white boy is going to do is jump up and run after the guy like he had something done wrong to him. You're not going to go running after the guy you just insulted with the biggest insult you could throw on him. You're not going to do that unless you're just a straight up white supremacist. And I don't believe Mason Rudolph is a white supremacist, because a white supremacist can't play football with mostly black men. You're supposed to lead them. Those are your teammates. You're sharing locker rooms with them. You're sharing the road. You're at training camp. So much of your life is in and about a team, whether in college or in the pros. And you're surrounded by black men. You're surrounded by hip hop music. You're surrounded by that culture. There's no way in hell a white supremacist will allow himself to be surrounded by that.
And from what I've heard, there have been audio during that game that could have heard something or could not have heard something, but they don't want to say. So something was said. I know something was said. Now, whether the NFL wants to acknowledge it, that's up to them.
This is very disingenuous. He's using a lot of gray area there. Well, there's audio. They could or could not have it. He said something. I know he said something. He's allowing enough space for people in the media to give him excuses. Like there could be a mistake. He just doesn't act like somebody who has had that kind of indignity said to him. So he's basically saying, hey, the NFL knows. The NFL knows? I think that would come out because Mason Rudolph is just some backup quarterback. And we're not talking about Aaron Rodgers over here. We're talking about Mason Rudolph. And if he said that, they're going to want to defend their bright young star. They're not going to go to bat. They're not going to try to destroy evidence. They're not going to hold things back to protect Mason freaking Rudolph.
There's no evidence that Mason Rudolph has said the N-word towards them. There's no evidence whatsoever that anybody else heard it because they're all categorically denying they heard such a thing. The NFL investigated. The Pittsburgh Steelers investigated the situation. Nobody has deduced that Mason Rudolph used that word against Myles Garrett.
That's the unequivocal truth. And if you want to believe Myles Garrett, then that's your own bias. I'm sorry, it is. Because it doesn't make logical sense. What does make logical sense is Myles Garrett was pissed. Because here's the last play of the game. They're up multiple scores. They're going to win the game. Doesn't matter what happens. And the Steelers are going to throw the damn ball. They're going to have me run another play. He's pissed. He's already pissed. He didn't think he should be there. And he stated that again in the interview. He doesn't try to body slam Mason Rudolph or anything else. He just grabs him and holds on to him and then just slowly goes down. Just uses his weight to bring him down. And he's trying to be careful as possible not to land on him because that's a flag. All right? But just let him know, hey, I don't appreciate it. I know I can't slam you down. I know I can't ride you down. I know I can't land on you. So he just takes him down like that. Mason Rudolph's like, dude, that's completely unnecessary. Now he's pissed off. So he grabs at Myles Garrett's face mask. And Myles Garrett, who's already pissed, says, oh, you want to grab a face mask? And he grabs Mason Rudolph, pulls him so hard, picks him up by the helmet, and, contorts his neck and rips it off. Which now Mason Rudolph's highly pissed off and goes running after him, not thinking that, hey, Myles Garrett's a guy that could just beat the shit out of you with not a whole lot of effort. But he's inflamed, he's pissed, he's not thinking. And so he comes around trying to get at him. I don't know what the hell he's thinking he's going to do, but when you're that pissed and you're seeing red, you're not thinking. And then there's Myles Garrett, who's pissed. And now he's seeing red. He sees this punk coming at him. Like, what? And without thinking, because he's pissed, he's seeing red, he throws that helmet right over the top. Nails Mason Rudolph. It's two guys that were just enraged by the game, the circumstances, the whole nine. And they lost control. And that's what happened. I don't think Myles Garrett's a bad guy for it. Anyone could be capable of the same action given the same set of circumstances. But don't sit here and talk about you're not wanting to make this a racial issue when you just did. And I'm sorry, with a lack of evidence. And that's another thing. If you ever notice these guys with these big clear satellite dish looking things on the sidelines, we've all seen them. Some guy goes running out of bounds, gets knocked out of bounds, and trucks over one of those guys, and we all get a good laugh. Well, what are those guys doing? They're picking up all the sounds of the game. Trash talking, collisions, helmet-to-helmet stuff, pads, running, grunts, screams, yells, the whole nine. They could pick up all kinds of crap. And trust me, when they're seeing a quarterback go down, someone's got that dish, whatever it is, pointed in that direction. They're picking up sounds and audio of what's being said. So I don't believe for 2 seconds that if that was said, that there is evidence of it, and the NFL would have released it. Or if nothing else, they would have called Mason Rudolph into the office. They would have said, yeah, he did say something. He did throw out a racial slur. And they would have left it at that. And they would have suspended Mason Rudolph as well. Because they're not going to have that kind of crap go on. I know the commissioner is white. I know a lot of people in the places of power in the NFL are white. But there's a lot of black men in positions of power as well. And a lot of those people in those positions of power have an incredible amount of respect for the black men who play, that coach, that teach, and have been involved in and around the NFL for decades and decades. They got too much respect for those men to let a punk like Mason Rudolph off the hook. And that's my take on it. Anyway, thanks for watching this stupid video. I'll be back with some other crap later. Bye.